Good evening. Here's my project. My title, an analysis of selected instructional texts. And here are two samples for instructional texts, just to give you an impression of what is instructional texts. And here's my project outline. Firstly, I will give some introduction to my topic, what is instructional tests, which includes explaining instructional tests, and I will characterizing the selected tests. Secondly, here are some recap of related knowledge. Here are how these tests relate to the speech function, tenor, modality, mood, theme, subject, logic, etc. And comparison of these tests as a subtype of the instructional texts. Thirdly, and I will give some critique of this knowledge. Finally, the conclusion. Firstly, we should know what is the instructional texts. According to the definition, the instructional text is to tell the reader how to do or make something, and to ensure something is done correctly and a successful outcome achieved. And there are three types of the instructional tests that are texts that explain how something works or how to use instruction or operation manuals. For example, like how to use a video, the computer, the tape recorder, the photocopier, the fax, etc. And the texts that instruct how to do a particular activity, like recipes, rules for games, science experiments, safety rules. And thirdly, that is the texts that deal with human behavior, like how to live happily and how to live longer. And there are some pictures to give you an impression how to use some. Firstly, how to use something. Here's how to use chopsticks. You can see very clearly from the picture. And secondly, how to do an activity. Here's a recipe, how to make a fruit salad recipe. And thirdly, how to deal with human activity, like how to live longer. And here are some language features of instructional texts. One by one, they are firstly written in the imperative, like shift the floor. Secondly, for instructional texts, second person is always used, like first you put, etc., etc. Thirdly, in most cases, the whole passage will be in chronological order, and first, next, then last will be used. Fourthly, the use of numbers, alphabet, or bullet points and color to signal order will be seen in these texts. Fifthly, for instructional texts, they will use adverbs and adjectives for precision. You need to measure carefully. Here, carefully is used. And finally, the instructional texts will focus on the generalized human agents rather than the named individuals. And next, here are some generic text structure. Firstly, the structure of an instruction text is often like this, but not always. Firstly, in the instructional text, you will see a goal stated in the beginning, like how to make a sponge cake. And followed will be materials or equipment needed, like 2 eggs, flour, and you will see this like in a recipe. And finally, the use of numbers, alphabet, or bullet points and color to signal order will be seen in these texts. And next, here are some language features of instructional texts. Firstly, the structure of an instruction text is often like this, but not always. Firstly, in the instructional text, you will see a goal stated in the beginning, like how to make a sponge cake. And followed will be materials or equipment needed, like 2 eggs, flour, and you will see this like in a recipe. Thirdly, the steps you will see, because there will be a lot of orders for you to follow. And finally, for instructional tests, usually you will see a lot of diagrams or illustrations. And here comes to my tests. Since I have mentioned there are 3 types of instructional tests, a little bit big, so I focus on one type of them, that is how to use something, how to use type. And since my texts are basically very short in terms of the content, so I selected 12 texts for different topics. And mostly they are enabling tests, basically instructing, but you will see finally recommending is also included. Here's a snapshot of my tests. Here are only 11 tests, and one will be seen later. You see, all of them are how to use type, how to use sponge, how to use center floss, how to use Dropbox, how to use etc. etc. And here's an example of my test, how to use a gas heater. In the picture you can see a lot of numbers and a lot of imperative clauses. And here come to the recap of the related knowledge. I use these linguistic tools like speech function, type of figure, theme, polarity, mood type, modality, and the logic. I will explain them one by one. Here's a snapshot of my charts, like all of you must have done. Since my texts are pretty short, so I can divide each sentences into several chunks, so I can do the analysis more specifically. Here comes to the speech function. Like you can see in this picture, all of the speech function of my text is either command or statement. So I only explain how command or statement reflected in my tests. Like command, it is to tell somebody to do something, and I select 3 sentences from my tests. The first one, place a paper in respective slot. B, put a drop of liquid makeup onto your face where you want to apply it. 3, locate the access window to the fire escape balcony. You see, all of these sentences are achieved through the use of the verbs. And the statement is to tell somebody about something. And here are 2 examples. This handle is located to the right or left of the ladder, which will allow the fire escape ladder to lower to the ground from the last remaining fire balcony. Using the middle finger leaves your index finger free to manipulate the floss. You will feel how these speech functions are achieved. But sometimes these 2 speech functions will mix together and appear in the same sentence at the same time, like these 3 sentences. The first one, make a C shape with a floss as you wrap it around the tooth. Here in the previous part of the sentence, make a C shape with the floss. It is apparently a command. But in the in the second part of the sentence, as you wrap it around the tooth, it is a statement. They are mixed together, and the second sentence push the control knob down and wait 10 to 15 seconds or longer if it has not been lit in a while. They are pretty similar. If the food or drink is in an alcohol container, remove and place into something that is microwave compatible. Again, in the previous part of the sentence, it belongs to a statement, but in the second part of the sentence, remove and place, apparently it is a command. So these two speech functions are mixed together in the same sentence. Two, type of figure. And type of figure, usually it includes sensing, happening, doing this thing. And in most of my sentences, it usually includes like happening, doing, and being, and sensing. And we can see from these four sentences, use a fresh cosmetic sponge, break off a piece about 18 inches long, brush thoroughly, and wrap most of the flaws around in either the middle finger or the index finger, etc., etc. And we can see most of them are expressed with the use of the verbs at the beginning of the sentence. Apparently they are doing type. And secondly, the happening type. And we can see the happening type is very different from the doing type. You see, in the doing type, most of the sentences are started with the verb, but for happening sentences, the situation is very different. You see, in the first sentence, it will scrub away bacteria that can cause bad breath. It is just stating a fact, not a action. And the similar phenomena will be found in the following three sentences. You see, for the second sentence, pressing too hard can damage your gums or wear down your animal over time. And the third sentence, Dropbox will automatically sync where your connection is restored. And for the third type, being type, you can see clearly from these four sentences, the verb be is used in these sentences to achieve the type figure of being. And the sensing, determine, blah blah blah. We can judge from the use of the determine this verb. It's only achieved with your sense. And the second sentence, that is, make sure the glass is relatively clean. It is also based on your sensation. But sometimes the type of figure will be mixed in the same sentence, like these three. The first sentence, determine if your scanner has one of those so that you can scan one sheet or multiple sheets at one time. Here, determine belongs to the sense, and the second part of the sentence belongs to the being type. So this is one of the characteristics of these sentences. And a third part of my studies is the same, and according to this scholars, the theme refers to the starting point of the utterance and the element which serves as the point of departure of the message. So we can easily find the theme usually appears at the beginning of the sentence, like scanners will have a flat glass section for scanning. In this sentence, scanners is the theme. And for the second sentence, but they may or may not have an ADF, but they is the theme of the sentence. For the third sentence, insert the paper into either the ADF. Insert is also the theme of the sentence. Fourthly, the polarity. It is to judge whether this sentence is negative or positive. And I selected 4 sentences from my text, and the former 3 you can see clearly they are positive sentences. There are no negative words are used, but for the last sentence, but they may or may not have ADF. Negative and positive are used at the same time. And here's a snapshot of my analysis. You see, in this picture, all of the sentences are positive sentences, but for this picture, negative appeared, but very few, only twice. So, and I calculated the frequency and the times of both positive and negative appeared in my texts. Here you can see for positive sentences, they are for positive sentences they are more popular in the select text, and the frequency of the positive text is more than 80%. Fifthly is the mood type. You see in this picture, it relates to the modal verbs, and for the mood type, it can be divided into 2 types, that is proposition and proposal. And according to my study, nearly all of my sentences are declarative type, so I select 3 types of my sentences. That is, scanners will have a flat glass section for scanning. If you are using the paper feeder, you see all these 2 sentences are declarative type, and for the proposal type, most of the sentences are imperative clauses, like place paper in respective slot, like you have seen from my previous PowerPoint. And also insert the paper into either the ADF or place on the flatbed for scanning use. And seventh part is the modality, modalization, probability, reality, modulation, inclination, obligation. But for my texts, they are not very even appeared in my text. Like you see, probability, but they may or may not have an ADF. Heaters can become hot to the touch and cause burns. There are some modal verbs appeared. And for reality, it's very scarce in the instructional text. Only few can be found, like scanners will have a flat glass section for scanning, and inclination and obligation are less that can be found only several that I can find in altogether 11 texts. And finally, the logic. I will talk about the connection word, and there are maybe 5 types of the connection words. Firstly, the addictive words, and it is achieved by the use of the word and. It is very often that you can see a push the control knob down and wait 10 to 15 seconds, turn the knob to the off position and start over. Secondly is the adversive type with the use of but. That sounds like a lot, but you want enough to keep a clean segment in place as you move from tooth to tooth. But is used. Store the charger close enough to the sink so it is easy to reach, but far enough away that you won't accidentally knock it into the sink and get electronic. And thirdly is the alternative with the use of or. Push the control knob down and wait 10 to 15 seconds or longer if it has not been lit in a while. Pressing too hard can damage your gums or wear down your blah blah. And fourthly is a temporal. You see in this picture there are numbers appeared. It means sequential. You need to follow these steps, and except these numbers are used, we can see that then and as are also used to achieve the effect of the temporal logic. You see in the second sentence, then just follow these steps. The third sentence, that sounds like a lot, but you want enough to keep a clean segment in place as you move from tooth to tooth. Here as just equals to when. And finally the condition, and there are 3 types of the conjunction word are used to for the condition. The first one is as long as you use the right technique, the type of flaws you use a matter of personal preference. And the second one is if. It is very often we can find a lot if in the sentence, in the text. If the food or drink is an aluminum container, if no suggestion or recommendation are given, if contents are frozen. And the third one is in the event, dial 911 immediately in the event that a fire occurs in your apartment as a result of the gas heater. And also another one, causal. And here are some examples, like because is used to the effect of causal. Because you will be putting your fingers into your mouth, be sure to wash your hands before you reach for the floss. And so is also used. These brittles will wear out a couple months of regular use and become less efficient, so be sure to replace the brush frequently. So, and as I have mentioned that the former 11 texts are very short. Usually the shorter one is about just 100 words, and the longer ones are probably 800 words. But to make my study more meaningful, I select a more complex text, how to use pesticide, and later you will see what is the complex means. I mean, the I see the complex text is not only about the content but also about the sentence structure and also the information it involves, and we can see how complex it is from these linguistic tools like speech function, type of figure, polarity, modality, and the logic, like I have already explained for the former 11 texts before. And here are some typical sentences like in these texts, like read and follow or label instructions. Make 1 ounce of product per gallon of water using stronger concentrations does not make the product more effective but can increase its toxicity. You see, in these sentences, the speech function, the polarity, and the conjunction words, and the speech and the type of figure is stated up here. We can see like I have mentioned for the former 11 texts, these texts also include the command statement, positive conjunction words. So I mean that these complex texts have already contained the all these speech phenomena, and there are some more. I said that these instructional tests belong to enabling tests, and we all know that enabling tests have some subtype, that is instructing and regulating enabling macro. And what is enabling macro? That is combination of factors, do this, do not do this, and here we can see more clearly from these complex texts. And I also made a comparison between this simple text and these complex texts. And here are some summaries. For the simple text, the sentences are much shorter, but the complex text, the sentences is much longer, and the meaning and the structure is more complicated. And the linguist tool for the simple text is verifying as a whole, but limited in numbers, and I will explain this later. And for the complex text, the linguist tool are very flexible. And for the simple text, the text type is fixed. Only in the enabling texts. But for the complex text, other similar text type or subtype is mixed with the major one, and I'll explain this more later. Here are some examples to explain the degree of the complexity of this text, and I select 2 elements, that is polarity and the logic conjunction words. For the polarity, and like I have mentioned that for the previous 11 texts, most of the sentences are positive, but in this complex text, more negative sentences appeared, like these 5 sentences you see. Apparently there are a lot of not and never you see. And for also the logic, here are some more advanced connection words are used for this purpose, even if for this purpose because I've mentioned that for the same text only some words like because, as, so, these simple words are used to express the causal effect. And here are some more examples to illustrate how the negative effects are achieved in this text, like do not and do not do something, avoid food, etc. And also you need to pay attention to the fourth sentence: alternative suitable pesticides to obtain the best results in pest control. This will ultimately give better control of the insects and decrease the frequency of application. The reason why I select these four sentences is that these four sentences is not just about giving information, but also to warn people, to give a reminder for the good of the reader, you know, like a lot of warm suggestions. You do this, you will get harmed, or this thing. So I see that. So I can see that. This text also belong to recommending texts, because recommending texts should think about the effect for the good of the readers who are addressing. And here are some critique of this tool. This tool, I mean all of these linguistic tools I have used, like speech function, modality, logic, and theme. In my opinion, this method for analyzing the text is more concrete. You know that we divide the sentence into a lot of small chunks so that we can see how to achieve the intended effect of the author. And secondly, qualifying factors were easy to quantify, which means that we can count how many times the statement appeared in the text, how many times the positive sentences are used in the text. They are very easy to count. And thirdly, some factors are ambiguous, because I think the analysis process can be subjective. So maybe this is a flaws of this linguistic tool. And here are some data analysis, and I have counted the total words, the clause, and how many times the command and the statement appeared in my text, and how many times doing, being, sensing, and happening taking place in all of these 11 texts that you see very clearly from these colored parts. That is, command and statement are much more frequently appear in this text. And for the type of figure, doing and being are the most frequently appear in the text. And here's this chart is more apparent. And through this text, I just want to say that no matter it is simple text or complex text, we can also see the general trend of the general frequency of the linguistic tools appeared in the text that they are much more like the same. Just the numbers are a little bit different, and as a whole, I see the total words of my text are more than 5,000, and there are more than 200 clauses, and we can still see that the result is more similar to the previous two charts that we can make the same conclusion that statement appeared the most frequently, and the doing type is more frequently compared with other three types. And finally comes to the conclusion part. And firstly, the conclusion on the knowledge. In my view, that text typology enabling texts are very useful when dealing with a text as a whole, but we need to take some consideration into the individual sentences, because, like I said, the analysis with this kind of linguistic tools are very subjective, so we cannot make the judgment at random, just by means of the knowledge that we are given. And the secondly is that difficulties may be found in applying to some ambiguous sentences, because I think that this one is pretty similar to the first one, just to see that some sentences are very difficult to qualify whether it is a command or a statement, or whether it is a happening or a doing type. And here's the conclusion on the selected text. Here are 6 points. And instruction texts basically belong to enabling text, but some parts of the text can be overlapped with recommending texts. Instruction texts are not just about simple sentences giving instructions, but complex clauses conjuncted with various conjunctions are also included. And for theme verbs, for the use of theme verbs or adjunctions like then, and, if, and don't do are always adopted. Doing and being are the most frequently used type of figure. Positive sentences are given priority compared with the negative sentences. Modality is rarely used in instructional texts. Here's my references. That's all. Thank you.